So yeah, we're gonna jump in and talk about the equipment inspection program. It's been out, several years now. The latest iteration of the program. So give it a little update on that and kind of catch everybody up, and then throw out some new ideas that have come up over the last year for sure. So if you don't know me, I'm Mike Pacheco, Innovation Product Manager, working all McElroy's digital products, and I'm going to be presenting with Jason Penland, who I'm going to screw up your title, Sales Channel Manager for North America. He's kind of important, I don't know. Anyway, so we're gonna be talking together, going through the program. So let me jump into. I always like to start. If you're not familiar with it, let me actually do this. Let's get a little show of hands. Who's using it? Just so I can get a reference of, yeah, two guys over here that write the program. Raise their hands. So okay, so there's a few people on it. So good. I can say whatever I want, really, and everybody's believe me. So let's jump in on the why. So this program goes way back, really back to 2018, and it does start with really channel partners coming to McElroy looking for a way to maintain their fleet. How do you want us to do this? How do you want us to inspect the equipment? And back then it was like, okay, let's tackle that. And they were really looking at it from the standpoint of protecting their own investment. There were certain organizations that already had it as company policy that they were going to be doing annualized inspections anyways. So they were a little on the forefront of that. So those were kind of the two first aspects. And then something happened that really blew this program up, and that's from the regulatory side. So I'll talk just a minute about that. So there's a group, PHMSA for short, but it's Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, which is quite a mouthful, but that is an agency under the Department of Transportation, actually, who they're responsible for developing, enforcing all the regulations for all of the U.S. It was like 2.8 million miles of pipeline transportation. And they had worked for several years, long story about all that, and they had come out and developed what's called the plastic pipe rule. And this went into effect in 2019. This was like a 10-year process to get this rule into effect. And when it hit, and then, yeah, look at that second part, compliance of December 2019. Okay, how many of you know all utilities that are in compliance? Probably not there yet, so we're working on it. But the rule was rather large. I actually considered this a mega rule, and the part that we were the most concerned with, and the part we're here talking today, was the heat fusion joining section, and specifically this section here, 192756. Says, and this is it, this is straight out of the book, that operators must maintain joining equipment in accordance with the manufacturer's recommended practices or with written procedures that have been proven by testing experience to produce acceptable joints. This came out, and that's still a little vague. What exactly do you mean? But folks reached out to McElroy. Well, McElroy, what do you suggest? Well, this is the program that we already had in place. But then what happens is essentially what this rule states is that every natural gas operator, whether you're the utility worker yourself or you're a contractor, every piece of joining equipment has to fall under this regulation. And what really happened was, think about the massive scale of this. Just consider every natural gas utility in the U.S. Consider all the equipment they own. Consider all of the equipment their contractors own, and it is absolutely astonishing what this has done for this really for this industry. There's a huge opportunity. What we're seeing now, and this was a big question, is well, how are they going to enforce this? What else is going to come of it? And I'll tell you what we're seeing today. It really has fallen back to the utility commissions. So PUC is what I have up there, if you're not familiar with that acronym. They're the ones coming down and now saying, okay, this is how we're going to do this. Challenge with that is that they're really somewhat taking it and establishing their own requirements. They're really putting the how to this. But the program has been been able to work through it. So that's what's happened as far as McElroy's standpoint with this. We have completely gotten behind it. Obviously, we've been talking about it. There was I'll call it the version 1 of the program for us, and it was an app, an Android app, and we realized we had to get to this scale. And so we invested in and developed the version 2 of the app, which you can go out and use today. And that's really what I'm going to talk about here, and Jason's going to go walk through as well. So when this came out, huge opportunity. We all had to get our arms around it. What we first saw, a lot of people wanted to they could go out on their own and develop their own program. That's still an option for them, or they could use this this program as well. Most of them did it with a paper-based checklist. Well, interesting thing, that's actually where we started, was paper-based, right? A lot of you, if you're a certified rental, something similar to that, but there's challenges with paper, right? Doesn't scale very well. What happens when a survey needs to be updated? You know, how do you version control paper? Well, even whenever you're actually doing those inspections as well, and you're trying to manage paper, not super easy. Gosh, I'm just looking for Pat to come out and say something, but he's got a smirk on his face. So you got to manage the paper while you're doing the inspection. You know, you're out, you're in the warehouse, dirty equipment, you're working through things, and you're trying to manage a piece of paper doing it. Not the easiest thing. Then you have to store that document, right? Really, for the life of that equipment, a lot of cases, and this is where the PUCs are coming in, probably the life of the pipeline that was just installed with that as well. So that can create challenges. And then at the end of the day, you have no data, right? You don't have really anything, you have stuff on paper, but how do you use that data? So what we saw, what we worked to develop was how do we make this process as easy as possible? And we had really 3 things on when we were developing the new application. The first thing is it had to be portable, okay? And what do we mean by portable? We want it to be able to be downloaded really by major devices, iOS and Android. So we have both of those in mobile app form, as well as access from any web browser. So that way, wherever you are, you can access the information you need. We also had to have multiple user access. So again, and this is where we turned to the Vault. So it's a program, obviously, that McElroy is going forward with. But it's important that they can access all that same information. And then central storage, right? We all need access to the same information. And then, of course, safe and reliable access to that information, which is what the Vault does. So that was the development of the current application that we're in production with today. Excuse me. See everybody's voice going at the end of this. Talk about a little bit of data surrounding where we have been so far on the program. So, we'll go. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start. It'll be your top left there. So we have in the program, we are already over 22,000 inspections, right? And that's the version 1 and version 2, okay? So version 2 was launched at last year's INFUSION. You can see that graph right below that. We've seen great adoption of the program. You can see really we have made almost a full switch over to the latest version of it, where we're all storing all this information in the Vault. So we've seen really great use at really the start of this year as well, and then of course continuing on. We have over 150 unique customers already served with this program. So really excited to see a number like that, and that's end users. So those are unique and end user numbers that we're looking at. Over 235 inspectors already out there doing this. 24 channel partners. So again, the bulk of the channel partners are involved. And then you see at the bottom 3 contractors. This is an interesting situation if you think back to that scale. Here's what happened, and you consider these are large contractors, nationwide contractors that have 700 crews spread out all over the U.S. That was a challenge for even channel partners to be able to get and find that reach. And so they partnered, they came together and said, hey, we cannot go out and support and find all those and manage it just from a logistics process. How can we do this together? And that's exactly what they did is we said, okay, well, let's train them to do inspections. But we partnered with them. Essentially, we're able to funnel back parts sales and that partnership with the channel partner as well. But since then, more contractors have come on, and so we have opened the program up again where it makes sense to have others do that inspection as well. So that is what has really driven this work. We have dedicated work going on forward within McElroy to support this program. The opportunities are great. Of course, it really started here, but it's not ending here, right? The natural gas market's driving a lot, but we're seeing a lot more movement within the app, and I think that's where Jason's going to jump in and talk about where we're seeing this go today.
Thanks, Mike. Any NFL fans in here? Anyone know what they call the last pick in the NFL draft? What do they call it? All right, so I get to be the last speaker at Infusion 2023, so that makes me Infusion 2023 Mr. Irrelevant. But I want to talk to you about the rental side of the inspection app, where Mike talked about it from, you know, the gas utility side of it, where it was mandated for compliance, and the app needed to be used in that way to inspect equipment. There's a lot of value when it comes to the rental side. If you think about how you interact with a rental car pickup or return, or what about when you drop off your car for service? How do they treat you now? It's different than it used to be. It's evolved from pen and a clipboard and a piece of paper to them walking around the car with an iPad or tablet. They're making a digital record. And so we figured these high volume businesses are using technology to manage their fleets, and we saw the same value that it could present for our channel partners as far as managing their rental fleets, which they were doing in different ways. So upon request from many of you, we saw how this could cross over into managing your fleets, but we needed to develop features that made it friendly from the crossover from the utility side, the contractor side, to you using it internally for your own fleets. And so what we did was we looked at a few different ways we could evolve it. So we needed the ability to do check-ins and check-outs, right? That's number one. We needed the ability to document your equipment with photos as they came in and verify the condition it was in when it left. We needed better asset management. One thing we know is I used to be on the contractor side and dealt with rental equipment, and there's a philosophy from people in the field that it's a rental. They don't care about your fleet as much as you care about your fleet. So a program like this gives you better ability to manage your assets. And last but not least, we just need simply the ability to know where your entire fleet is at any given time. And so this program, it wasn't a new invention. It was built off the way that you already managed your fleets, mainly typically more manual with pen and paper and filing cabinet. We just wanted to make it a little more simple, a lot more accessible, and tailor-make it to the way you manage your McElroy fleet. So let's dive into the benefits a little bit further. First, just simply being able to document the condition of the equipment when checking in and checking it out, along with the customer information tied to the inspection was needed. And so having these pictures documented along with the inspection, it's just so vital. I mean, as far as managing your asset, knowing what it looked like when it left, knowing what it looks like when it comes in, you're able to actually charge and figure out how to get these parts passed back through your business. Which takes us to parts repair. Parts repair is probably the hardest thing to track when we're maintaining a rental fleet. So now using the inspection app, before the unit can be checked out and during the inspection process, we can document the asset with checks, notes, and with pictures. So you can see here, this is looking at a zoomed out picture where we have clamp knobs that are damaged, I think it should say damaged, and thrust bearings that need to be cleaned and rotate and freely on eye bolts. So in this case, it's missing a clamp knob. We need to document that with both photos and on the checklist. Here, zooming in, you can see a little bit tighter image of that. So it's important to note that when we developed the app, we were working with users and observed their workflows. One that we noticed was that as they were inspecting, they would document the parts that were needed on a notepad or even just a scrap piece of paper. And this is what was used to circle back up with the office, take out inventory out of stock, and for billing purposes. So we built this into the app where you can list the parts and note anything specific. And you also have the ability to use the McElroy Parts Finder by hitting the search button. It's going to take you to the model that you're inspecting, and you can go through the bill of material to find the parts numbers that are needed. So this is what that would look like. This list can actually be exported to a CSV and then be sent to the appropriate parties for the proper transactions and billing needs. You can see here, looking on the left-hand side, my left-hand side, your right-hand side, we have things that need to be replaced and things that need to be ordered. This is simple as you pass that along to the people that make these decisions to see what needs to be put on order. So not only can you make individual photos, but as you're doing the check-in, check-out process, you can take walk-around photos and tie these photos to repairs in your checklist. Once the check-in and check-out process is complete, you can easily share the report to any interested party through this PDF option. We also wanted to co-brand this because we know this is something that whether you're doing it for a gas utility or you're doing it for a customer or you're doing it internally, we want it to look like it's your own documentation. So you see the big McElroy University logo here. You have the ability to put your own custom logo, and then all photos and comments will be included here as well, along with the status of the machine. But as we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the days of paper and filing cabinets aren't necessary anymore. So the app now has built-in sharing with the Vault ecosystem, so we don't have to transfer the paperwork. We've also included direct links to the reports that outside users can access as well. Simply send your contact a link via email through the Vault for them to be able to view the inspection of the asset. So another great benefit of the inspection program is assessment of the equipment with results and disposition. For example, there's built-in flexibility to allow the user to pass a unit, but the disposition can pass or repair should a small repair be required. For units that have a failed result, the inspector can choose between fail, repair, and replace. This type of information allows to access the equipment we have, the condition, as well as the location it was checked out into or out of. The program can also provide this information in a report that to be used as needed so you can have the visibility into the condition of your entire fleet. We have some channel partners I know that have put their entire fleet into this program just to have visibility to the locations. They're spread out across the United States, hard to track, hard to know where things are, hard to see if they're available, and so this program has allowed them to have one-shot visibility into, hey, where's my 618 machine? How many do I have available? How many are in repair? Tracking things like utilization. All these features of the new inspection program have given them better insight into their managing the rental fleet. So the checks that we have really came from three main areas. They came right from the shop floor where we do inspections. No, sorry, not hit too much. Sorry. Came right from the shop floor where we do inspections during assembly. They came from our product manuals, and they also came from things we learned from end users. But one thing we also know is that you manage more than just your McElroy rental fleet. You manage generators. I know some partners will rent anything that will rent. They'll rent brooms, they'll rent whatever, trucks, you name it. So we wanted to have the ability to add on to these surveys. So you can put custom surveys in the inspection program and write them based on anything that you have in your rental fleet. You can also, if there's checks that you have for your McElroy equipment, you can add to our surveys. You can expand on those to make them fit your check-in, check-out process. Excuse me. And what we're doing with this is we're talking to end users, as we're talking to your customers at be it trade shows, call-ins, you name it. We're pushing them towards you. We're talking about the program. We're telling them it's available and that your participation is important because you have the ability to inspect their equipment, maintain their equipment, order parts for their equipment, and we want to drive them back to you ultimately for you to make the sale and take care of each customer. Mike.
All right, so how can we help, right? First thing is, what Jason mentioned was, how do we get your products into a list like this? First thing that we've done is if you guys can generate an asset list for us, we can do a pre-generated upload for you. So whenever you go to use the program, all of your assets are already there at your fingertips. I think that is one of the big elements of what this program is if we just look at it with the lens of an inspection tool, you know, maybe that's all it is, but think about it from that asset tracking, being able to have a complete history of that piece of equipment, right, and being able to do costing over its lifetime as well, and all of the maintenance that you're putting into that asset. So we can certainly help with that if that's something that you want to do to get started. What is that list? We can pre-generate it. That way when your users go to do that inspection, it pulls up, you know, there's no fat fingering of what the model number is or serial numbers, anything like that. That can all be done ahead of time. Something beyond that, and where we have to be real careful with any piece of software is software creep is very real, especially in our world. We don't want it to become enterprise software necessarily. But what we have done is we have created APIs already. I know that's going to get a little technical. Here's why that's important. If you likely already have some system backend that this needs to communicate with, these APIs are very important. It's how systems talk to each other. When we have this ready to go, this is something that you can use to tie to your system. So this system can talk to another system very easily. Realize you have to get your IT department involved. Sometimes that's scary, but it's good to already have this pre-established to make it happen. So anyways, that is available. So if that's something you want to take back and have a conversation on, it's a big hurdle that's already overcome, and only gets things moving a lot faster. Lastly, Macro University training. We already have training courses out there. That is actually how, if you get onto the program, how you get an inspector ID, which is important aspects of the program. So it already exists, it's already available, so there's training out there. But let's talk about where also this continues to go. So again, think of it from an asset tracking tool. Think of it, from we say the rental side. I would also say really any check-in, check-out process you may have. If there's something you do even with your internal folks, we're doing this as a small example. We have some used equipment, basically demo equipment that when we need, we actually use this program for that. That way we have full asset tracking. It's not for us in a manufacturing world. There are part numbers and that's all stored in inventory. This is a non-inventoried item, so we use this program. So we can still track its condition. We know where it is, where it's located, who has it, whatever that case may be. So Chris here has a saying that we need to eat our own dog food. Not sure where he got it, but it makes sense, and we do. We follow our own, use our own program. So anyways, where do we go with this? And I think if you sat in on the data logger, I think really this whole event, you started to see the vision that we have with the vault and how much power is here. We want to take it mobile and think about over the lifespan of your asset that you've invested in, what this inspection tool can do, where we're going with Vault Mobile, and being able to have that historical view and more of a centralized view around that product that you have. And really the idea here is how do we, at the end of the day, how do we sell this out to the marketplace? It has to provide value. And so what we are doing, and we've been talking about for several years, is increasing the value of the vault ecosystem. I believe we've shown we certainly have done that. And then really at the end of the day, how does this increase the value of our equipment overall? And that's certainly important. I think most of you who track, especially used McElroy machine prices, know they go for a fair amount. So that's certainly what we're doing, and this adds more to that overall value. That's what we have. What questions do you guys have? Yes, sir.
Mike, on the check and check out portion, can you upload pictures yourself, or do they have to be data? Sometimes you have that high resolution. When you zoom in, it starts blurring out.
That's a great point, and I'll answer it slightly different. Is that the later app, you don't necessarily have to use a data logger, although DL7 has a pretty good camera on it. You can use your phone, run an iOS or Android app, and get, I mean, these things, today are incredible quality. So what we do see, and we see this often, is that a lot of people are still using a digital camera and having to then go upload. In this case, it's built into the app. I'm going to use the phone of the app, and I can get around whatever I need to do to take that photo. And you're doing it really through that guided process of inspecting the equipment. So I think the answer is yes, you can get around the equipment and do it. But can you choose a file? No, we don't have that feature in today. It's all done through the app. Sorry, yeah, answer that directly. What else?
You said making a asset stock list, is that something we have to send you, or we just put it into the app and it builds it ourselves?
Yeah, today you have to engage with us, and we'll get that up. Here's two ways to do it. If you go through and you have, I would say if you have a more contained asset list, go do an inspection. Just walk out, do an inspection, and that creates it in your asset list. If you have a sizable asset list, that's what we're saying. Send us this asset list. We already have a template for you. Hey, fill it out this way, and then we'll go and we'll do an upload. That way, when you access it, you'll have all the information ready to go. You'll just type in an asset number, and it'll just pull up, that direct asset with you're not having to key in model numbers, serial numbers, things like that. What else?
Any cool transitions in the app?
Oh man, we love transitions. Sorry, that's a little insider joke on our. We've got a couple of developers here. I give them a hard time. I make them do real fun stuff like little check marks and stuff. So they love that stuff. Yeah. What else? Pretty quiet. It's getting to the end, right? It's almost cocktail time. Yeah. See some international folks. Any? Oh, what a great question. Yeah. So I don't know if anybody heard that, but there is a concept that's in discussion, certainly, of scheduling your equipment. And again, these are really good features. We are looking into it, how we can integrate with a calendar. Basically, when you are doing it from the rental side, how do you say, oh, this one's being reserved, or this one's going to be out for 2 weeks, and be able to plan that business. So we're certainly looking at that. We want to make sure that whatever we do there, certainly fits the larger audience as well. So it's a good feature that we will keep an eye out. Yeah. Yes, sir.
If we're already using a separate software to track everything and keep track of how much money we've made off these and the depreciation, is that something that we can then, say I want to transfer just to that inspection app, is that something I can get all my previous info into with all my assets? Or is it like just starting from
Possibly. I think we'd have to dig into that one a little bit more specifically and see what we can do there. It's just data, right? We can figure it out. So, yeah.
How many people are using another software right now to manage their rental fleet? How many people are using still pen, paper, filing cabinet method to? So about equal on both sides. gas
go
station.
it is, yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So if you're entering in, say, Megamax, you know, not each one's the newer ones with the top come on, and you tend to swap carriages a bit between tracks, you know, 630s and T9s. Would it be smarter to enter those in as individual items?
So actually, that's the way it's designed today. You would inspect in the case of the track, a carriage and a vehicle separately. We are looking at a couple ways. This depends on how you manage your fleet, frankly. So it is done by component, and so you can select a carriage with heater facer attached, or like in the case of like I said, Series 2 medium diameter now, where you have an attached facer but no heater. So we have each of those component types already there, so you would do it by component, and their heater would be on its own inspection. The purpose of that, especially in the natural gas market, especially these large utilities, where they have a warehouse and there's a basket of facers, a basket of heaters, a basket of carriages, that way they're not tying up if something is a failed inspection or can't go out into the field. They're not tying up a whole package, they're just tying up that individual component. And so that's the way it was built. However, we do have users today where it's one asset and they want to inspect it all together. So we are looking at some features coming out to be able to do that as well. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Present asset numbers specific to users. Like an example would be, say I go to do an inspection for that asset for the utility, and next year another company comes behind and does that inspection for that same asset. They have access to all that data just based off that asset number, or can we have two different numbers? Who owns the information?
Who owns the information? That's,
Serial number, right?
yeah, I mean, it is the same machine. You're saying another company comes in behind, does it. Technically, the inspection would live in two different accounts. Okay, and you can duplicate it. Yeah. And then whenever you go to search it, though, it's going to combine it. And so a little bit different. I don't want to get too into the weeds here on this one. And again, think inspection is something that we do. It is something more localized to the inspector. The asset tracking is how we all are looking at this. And so once that's done, you'll be able to search assets. And again, you pull up the app on your phone, search any asset, and you get the full list. And again, natural gas world where it's out on site, it's required to be inspected. This gives everybody a public access view to be able to identify that that machine has been inspected. So that's why it does it. So everybody can access it. But where the inspection actually lives is in two different accounts. Yeah.
So, Mike, I was going to add to the answer on the separate, together combined machine.
Yeah.
Right now, if you wanted to, you could create your own survey that had a combined machine package. There's a few extra details that it doesn't quite catch, but you can do it today.
Yeah. Everybody hear that? Anybody need that repeated? But essentially, you can, if you wanted to do it all together yourself, you could go combine and create your own survey. And again, you got to remember those customizable surveys here. We did this for equipment, your electrofusion, processors, clamps, generators, brooms, if that somehow is joining equipment. But yeah, you could certainly do that, and then you could create your own survey as a combined survey. You can add custom questions. This is really, those customizable features. You may have something that you inspect beyond what McElroy would say. And again, it's above and beyond, satisfies all needs, and you'll be able to add that to your survey as well. Yes, sir.
On one account, are you able to have like your own rental fleet, and then say a utility comes in and does work, like, can you basically separate your fleet, and then anyone else who owns that vehicle into a separate fleet in the
Yeah.
same account?
A few different ways to do it. Primary way is we have a jobs function. It's very similar to joint reports, where you could create a specific job for a utility. Say everything I do for this utility is under this job. And that's basically like a high level filter for you to be able to separate all those asset numbers out of, let's say it was your rental fleet. And rental is actually another mode. You just flip in the app and turn on and off, and that'll flip into a whole nother mode. as well. So there's a couple different ways. Jobs would be probably primarily the way to do it. Another way to do it, because we're in the vault, we can take advantage of that vault ecosystem. We can use sub accounts. So you could have a whole sub account dedicated to a particular utility where all their information sits over there, and in the primary account, you know, those two things are separated. So another way to do that.
Are there rules on asset numbers and how you name them, or is there a recommendation?
It's probably the biggest. I'll be honest with you, it's the biggest trick, and the reason is what we would suggest is everybody go out, put asset numbers on their equipment, right? Because not all equipment is serialized. So it is certainly a body of work that we all have to do. There's no rules, just unique ID. You know, what is a unique number that you can use? It's almost a combination of it, though. Somewhat unlikely that you're going to have the same combination of asset number that somebody went out and generated to the specific model number and possibly a serial number. So going out, identifying your equipment is a good best practice, and putting asset numbers on all your equipment, especially if you're doing it from the individual level, like the carriage, the facer, the heater. Yeah. Question on here. Do you have one come up? Oh. Sure. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about some instances where multiple people might need to go back and look at that machine to see, you know, has it been inspected or whatever? Will this be similar to like the certified inspections that we do where I can just go in, or you can go in, anybody can go in and put that sticker number in and
Yeah.
it pulls up a list of everything that was done?
Yep, that same functionality was brought over to the new application as well. Yeah, and it can be done from whether you have an account or not. It's a public view. You can download the app, or you can go to the website and type that in, even without a login. Just says search for inspection, and gives a little search field. You can type in inspection, sticker number, asset number, serial number. I think it was all three. Yeah. What else? Okay. Well, hopefully cocktails start here pretty soon. I appreciate everybody's time and attention getting late in the day. Thank you all.